Everybody, please rise. Order in the court. The trial of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee now in session. We shall reach a consensus on whether it should be read in classes. Prosecutor and defense, please come to the stand.
Are both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
If the court will please, I'm sure that we all recall what language To Kill a Mockingbird uses. The repetitive use of the N-word is an extremely derogatory word. It offends many African Americans. It would be obvious to assume that reading the book will make them feel uncomfortable or offended, especially for ninth graders who are at the ripe age. They shouldn't need to be confronted with that word so many times, especially because the book even uses it offensively.
Objection, Your Honor. Opinion.
Sustained. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, To Kill a Mockingbird uses language that can be unsettling, but the book isn't trying to support racism. It instead shows how wrong it is. The story took place during a time when racism was common. The author, Harper Lee, included the language to make the setting of the story more realistic. A novel like this teaches more facts than the language being spoken in it. It teaches students empathy, fairness, and even having the courage to do what's right, even when it seems like everything else is against them. If we keep students away from difficult language being used, we're not protecting them. We're keeping them uninformed about the world around them. May I call Mrs. Robinson to the stand, Your Honor?
Mrs. Robinson, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give us is the full truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. When you first read To Kill a Mockingbird, did you feel offended by the usage of the slur? Did it make you in any way feel uncomfortable?
I admit it. It bothered me a little at first, but as I read more into the book, I understood the significance it brought and what message the author wanted to exactly send the reader. The N-word is a very common word that was used against African Americans during the time period the book was released, which makes its usage realistic. Although I am not promoting the normalization of the term, I do believe in certain contexts, it proves educational and almost necessary.
Thank you. As you can see, Mrs. Robinson, an African American, has read the book and felt no offense to the usage of the racial slur, and goes as far as to acknowledge that its purpose is to make the book realistic and educational. In Chapter 9, Scout asks Atticus if he defends N-words. In response to that, Atticus says, "Don't say N-words, Scout. That's common." In response to that, Scout says, "It's what everybody at school says." And Atticus concludes by saying, "From now on, it'll be everybody less one." This quote shows that the N-word was a word that a lot of people used in the period of the book, hence Scout saying it was common. But Atticus believed it was a word that shouldn't be used against black people, which is why he advised her not to say it. It is interpretable that the author's reason for this was that she shared this same viewpoint, which is why she used her characters to express it. That is all. Thank you.
I see, Mr. Elwell. What would you like to say in response?
Your Honor, allow me to give you a better picture. If you can look at the documents I have placed before you, you will see the article pro-book banning. The article goes over censorship, and what a coincidence that in our book, To Kill a Mockingbird falls under the exact censorship that should be placed. The main conflict arises with the wrongful arrest of Tom Robinson, which was motivated by, what you say? Racism. The reason for the arrest? Rape. This is a topic many prepubescent teenagers shouldn't be exposed to. It brings a very negative light into their heads and can often lead to more depressing moods. No parent wants to put that fear in their children. In the long run, if we continue to let books like To Kill a Mockingbird be read at school to our young children, it could affect them mentally by having their minds distracted by such uncouth topics. Such books should only be left for mature kids under the age of at least 17. In addition to that, the main character, who is white, is simply thanked for even helping the black man, while the black man's fate was left undecided. ... Even after the whole conflict, the ending was just too placated, making the story itself just improper. That is hardly what I can call justice. In Chapter 30, Hecate says, "There is a black boy dead for no reason, and the man responsible for it is dead. Let the dead bury the dead this time, Mr. Finch. Let the dead bury the dead." If this story is supposed to be mind-changing, why is it ending so perfect, Your Honor? May I call Mayella to the stand?
Go ahead. Mayella, do Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give us is the full truth and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do.
Mayella, as a high school student, would you say that this book is appropriate? Can you say with certainty that your peers who are freshmen can handle such a vulgar book?
My answer to both of these questions would be no. To Kill a Mockingbird is not meant to be read by teenagers who can barely control themselves when swearing. When I read the book, I felt very triggered by the way they treated all the violence happening. The topic of rape was so big and severe, yet they hardly treated it as they should have. Not only that, but it uses many inappropriate words that seem degrading, like whore lady. How is that supposed to make me, a reader, feel? Mr. Finch, you say that the author must have shared the same views as Atticus when telling Scout to avoid using the N-word, yet it doesn't stop her from making every other character use it, with crueler intentions. In addition to that, my friend, who is black, agrees that the book extends to many levels of racism, most of which seem stereotypical and degrading. A black man is convicted of a heinous crime, automatically the town is basically against him, and he cannot be saved unless it is by a central character who is a white man. A direct quote, I ain't never seen a jury decide in favor of a colored man over a white man. The black man was basically meant to lose, while the white man is eventually favored for giving the black man a chance. The black characters have no depth and purpose except for just teaching the main character, a white little girl, what racism is.
Objection!
Overruled. Mayella, continue. Yes, thank you. It is simply absurd. I understand that we are trying to make it realistic, but how is this supposed to make tens of hundreds of African American students feel, when I, a white girl, can hardly tolerate it? That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayella. As you can see, Your Honor, all this evidence points in one direction. To Kill a Mockingbird is not an appropriate book for schools to teach and be read in class. It is offensive, vulgar, and teaches kids the wrong ideas.
Thank you. Mr. Ewell, defense, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like for you all to bear with me. Mr. Ewell, while I understand your point, I would just like to say that I do not believe you have the full picture. Yes, To Kill a Mockingbird does indeed have such negative views pushed towards African Americans, but you must truly realize how important it is for a book to be realistic. After all, every freshman history class goes over the lives of African Americans during the 1900s, and it's sufficient to say that the book isn't far from reality. Black men did not have a chance of winning a court case for their own rights over a white man's. After all, take Plessy v. Ferguson for an example. It just shows how unjust the court system was back then if you're a person of color. Going back to your first piece of evidence, pro-book banning, I think you may have missed the point. The author talks about how book censorship is acceptable because parents have a right to restrict access to books they feel unfit for their children, but it shouldn't be used to eliminate ideas. Your Honor, the article before you, The Reasons Behind Book Banning, says, it might help young people better understand the world they live in, the human conditions, and the issues they face in their culture. Children thrive on newer and deeper topics. Therefore, I believe topics like rape and racism shouldn't be concealed. The main character, Scout, should be treated as a lens for the reader. Many kids could fall under her view of being uneducated about how far racism truly extends and aware of the dangers like rape. It should also be up to the teachers to make sure these topics aren't just treaded around. They need to be taught with utmost seriousness. And Mr. Ewell, allow me to give you a better understanding of the book. The central theme is change through knowledge. Change through knowledge is depicted in every sense of the word. Whether big or small, the theme is still prevalent. To Kill a Mockingbird, our main character, Scout, struggles with controlling herself, and Atticus is always seen trying to give Scout lessons of self-restraint and control. Yet Scout continues to show incapability of it, as she is always seen beating others up because of something they did to take her off. A good example of this would be in Chapter 9 when she proceeds to give her cousin Francis the beating of his life for talking badly about Atticus. This is an example of how Scout failed to learn the lessons taught by Atticus himself and instead remained impulsive. However, as the story progresses, notable changes occur in Scout and her maturity. An example would be in Chapter 24 of the book, during the missionary circle meeting, when Miss Stephanie Crawford verbally degrades Scout in front of her face by insulting her hopes of becoming a lawyer by saying, well, you won't get very far until you start wearing dresses more often. However, Unlike Chapter 9, Scout doesn't react negatively to her words, and instead doesn't let it get to her because she has learned better after countless of rash actions. This is a great show of maturity and control, especially for a reckless child like Scout. On top of that, her biggest expression of the theme was her change in treatment and thoughts about Boo Radley. Over the course of the book, Scout's descriptions and tone of Boo became gradually more accepting. And for example, in the beginning of the book, she perceives him as a very dangerous man, basing most of her thoughts and actions on the town's murmurs about him. In Chapter 1, she describes him with monster-like features, painting him as some sort of villain. However, this depiction begins to change in Chapter 5 when Atticus slowly starts to influence her by saying, "Son, I'm going to tell you something and tell you one time. Stop tormenting that man. That goes for the other two of you." Then, in Chapter 8, during the fire, Boo Radley covers her with a blanket, symbolizing him as a protector rather than a threat. In place of her original negative mindset of him, she says, "Someday, maybe Scout can thank him for covering her up." This quote shows that Scout, instead of feeling threatened by his actions, sees the goodwill and intentions. It was from that point forward that she began to stop going over to the Radleys to harass Boo. Finally, the most pivotal moment that underlines Scout's maturity and understanding of the theme was in Chapter 31, when Scout finally looks at things through Boo's perspective. Atticus was right. One time, he said, "You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them. Just standing on the Radley porch was enough." These examples represent the buildup of change through knowledge, from Scout's initial thoughts on Boo, which were influenced by the town, to her seeing things as they truly were from her own experience and understanding. It shows the growth in Scout from being immature and impulsive to more mature and compassionate. To wrap this up, Your Honor, To Kill a Mockingbird is a book that I believe every bright young man should be able to read. It allows them to acknowledge emotions like empathy, compassion, and always being open-minded. In Power of the Books, books are powerful instruments. They can be used to educate, to inculcate values and transmit ideology, and to stimulate imagination. To Kill a Mockingbird doesn't try to suppress such heavy topics. It goes over them step by step, educating the reader while also educating the main characters themselves. The youth needs these books now more than ever, so who are we to take such an opportunity away from them? Therefore, To Kill a Mockingbird should not be banned in schools, but instead promoted. That is all I have to say. Your Honor, you may deliver the final verdict. Thank you.
After reviewing all of the evidence, I am now ready to give the verdict. The court finds the defendant not guilty. To Kill a Mockingbird gives students a learning experience of history, the old court system, and most importantly, the theme changed through knowledge. Albeit the harsh language, topics, and slurs, the court finds it necessary and appropriate based on the intentions of the book. Therefore, it shall be read in classrooms. Case dismissed. Damn, my eyes are kind of blurry.